name is Alex. I'm the Food Systems Coordinator with the city. I wrote my master's thesis on addressing food waste as a contribution to sustainable food systems a number of years ago. So this is exciting for me to be here and kind of dive into this topic because it is still so important and so relevant today. So to set the context, as we all know and have heard, global food waste is a far-reaching problem with tremendous financial, ethical, and environmental costs. 1/3 of all food available for human consumption is wasted or lost at approximately 1.8 billion tons a year. This has a direct correlation to wealthier countries wasting exponentially more food at the distribution and consumption level. And an estimated 1.3 billion tons of food is wasted globally each year, which is enough to feed the 815 million hungry people in the world 4 times over. In Canada, 58 to 63% of food Canadians throw away could have been eaten. 35.5 million tons of food waste or food is wasted or lost in Canada. 32% of this, which amounts to 11.2 million tons, could have been rescued to support communities across Canada. For the average Canadian household, that amounts to 140 kilograms of wasted food per year, at the cost of more than $1,100 to $1,700 per year. Second Harvest in Toronto published a report called the Avoidable Crisis of Food Waste. This is where this infographic is from as well, wherein they stated 2.38 million tons of food, or more than 10 billion worth, is wasted at the consumer level. In total, the value of all food that is lost or wasted in Canada is a staggering 49 billion, which is enough to feed every Canadian for 5 months. Food waste in Canada creates 56.6 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions, and food in landfills also creates methane gas, which is 25% more damaging to the environment than carbon dioxide. In BC, we throw away about 1 out of 4 bags of groceries we buy, and in Greater Victoria, 14% of all households are food insecure, with higher rates among vulnerable populations such as seniors and children. It is clear that we need to radically change the way we as a society value food. As the world's population continues to grow, our challenge should not be how to grow more food, but how to feed more people while wasting less of what we already have. Thankfully, the world is waking up to food waste at every level, from the UN sustainability goals to federal policy changes and national food waste recovery reduction strategies all over the world, to an emergence of social enterprise sector tackling smart ways to divert food from landfill and creating upstream solutions to recover edible food, to communities. There are many inspiring programs helping to save tons of food and feeding thousands of people. We are barely scratching the surface of what radical changes need to happen, but I believe we are awake and ready. Moreover, there are plenty of actions we can take at the consumer level to make a significant difference, which is why today we are here to listen and learn from our lovely panelists to discuss how to reduce food waste at home. So from recovering food and rediverting to community food programs, to preserving and freezing food or shopping smarter and composting to keep inedible scraps out of our landfill, we can all take small steps to curb our emissions. So today we're very excited to have our 2 panel speakers. Treska Watson, the Manager of Food Security at the Food Security Distribution Center at the Mustard Seed, and Rhiannon Moore, the Zero Waste Outreach Coordinator with the City of Victoria. So thanks to both of you for being here today. For the agenda, I'll be asking Treska a couple questions about the food rescue program at the Mustard Seed, and then Rhiannon will be giving a presentation about the Love Food Hate Waste campaign and discussing the city's zero waste strategy. As Janelle said, there will be a Q&A period for the last 10 minutes of the webinar, so please hold your questions until this time, where you can type them in the chat box, and please note if the questions are directed to one or both of the speakers. So Treska, I'll just give a bit of an introduction. She's the Food Waste Security Manager at the Mustard Seed Food Security Distribution Center. Her role is to develop and maintain strong relationships with stakeholders, donors, and over 70 nonprofit agencies the center serves. She is also actively involved in managing the day-to-day operations of the food rescue program for the Greater Victoria region. Treska started with a seed in the community engagement role, with a focus on building the Mustard Seed Coffee Company. And the coffee company is a growing social enterprise that is now part of the center, with all profits going towards the food rescue project. So Treska, thanks for being here today.
for having me. That's great to be here.
So tell us a bit about the food rescue program and how is the program addressing food waste on a community scale?
So our center here, the Food Security Distribution Center, has been open since 2017. We have 5 trucks on the road 5 days a week right now. Normally it's 6 days a week, but we've gone down to 5 days a week because of COVID staffing restrictions. And we collect rescued food from all of our grocery partners. Our grocery partners include Thrifty Foods, Save On Foods, Country Grocer, Red Barn Market, Fairway Market, Whole Foods, and most recently Costco has come on board. Sorry, my video is frozen, so you're probably just going to see my frozen face now.
That's okay.
And the food is what we call cleaned, then gleaned by volunteers and redistributed to over 65 local agencies that belong to what we call our Foodshare Network.
Great. And how many kilograms of food do you go through at the warehouse each month? And yeah, let's ask that one.
Sure. So initially when the center opened, we collected on average 4,000 pounds of food daily, which is a lot of food already. But since we've had some expanded partnerships, in particular Costco coming on board, we collect anywhere from 9,000 to 12,000 pounds of food daily, which equates to over 2.6 million pounds annually that comes through our doors.
Wow, that's a lot of food.
That is a lot of food.
You had mentioned the Foodshare Network. Can you describe some of the types of organizations that are a part of the Foodshare Network?
Absolutely. So the Foodshare Network is a huge array of agencies. It includes schools, community centers, seniors housing, Indigenous communities, churches, all sorts of other nonprofits that all serve Victoria's most vulnerable. The Foodshare Network was integral to the beginning of the center, and everything we do here, all of our agencies that we serve are routed through the Foodshare Network to make sure that the rescued food is going to the right. As you mentioned earlier, the 14% of the population that is what we call food insecure. This center serves, our best guess at this point is at least 35,000 people per month through those agencies.
Amazing. And how do these agencies use the food they received?
So how they use the food, it goes out to, like I said, any number of agencies. So some of it is school programs. Obviously that's not happening right now. Seniors housing complexes get together and cook the food. They distribute food directly to families in the community. It's used in any number of ways. Our Place, Salvation Army, some of the bigger nonprofits in town do a lot of meal preparation with the food. So they take our food and prepare it for hot meals for their communities that they're serving. Our food bank location over on Queens Avenue serves hot lunches to up to 200 people in the community every day. So you name it, it's happening with the food that leaves our center.
Amazing. And since the program started, have you seen a change in how much food is coming from grocery stores? Are they being more efficient or wasting less?
I'm not sure that there's been a real change at store level. Some stores are getting a little more efficient, but really what happens is we are the recipient of all of this beautiful rescued food because the stores are consumer driven. So we see a consistent amount of food year over year. If anything, we've received more food as we expand our programming. What happens is at the consumer level, folks aren't going to buy the tomato with a little blemish on it. They're going to buy the perfect tomato right next to it. So as much as that's an issue, and that's certainly something that you're trying to address here with some of this food literacy and this programming, it's also a blessing in that we receive a lot of food that is just absolutely spectacular and perfectly good for human consumption. So I don't know that the stores have changed too much because of the consumer-driven environment.
And how has the pandemic affected this program? Have you seen an increase or a decrease in donations or the type of food that you're receiving?
We've been really lucky. We've seen a huge increase. The community of Victoria has really pulled together. The stores are all really aware of what we do on an ongoing basis. So we have had an influx of private donors as well as some of the grocery stores stepping up in ways to help us. And that has been unbelievably helpful because the need has, of course, grown. So we were serving, the Foodshare Network began with about 45 agencies. We're now serving over 70 agencies. So the need is only growing for this food and this programming.
So as an agency, how do you become a part of the Foodshare Network?
So the Foodshare Network is run separate from what we do here at the Food Security Distribution Center, in that it's its own entity that screens agencies. Agencies apply, explain what they're doing, who they're serving, and how the food would be distributed. And then our Foodshare Network coordinator, Sonia, meets with us at the steering committee, and we review each agency and make sure that they fit with the mandate, and we approve them based on that information.
Is there a membership fee associated, or is it free to join?
Currently, I believe it's a nominal fee of $25 to join. I know that we are looking at some different fee structures for some of the larger agencies that receive a large amount of food. But right now it's $25. It's a nominal fee just to become a part of the network.
It's very affordable for all the thousands of pounds of food they're receiving. How do you see this as a sustainable model, or do you? And how is this program being funded?
Well, that's a great question. It's a huge question. Is it a sustainable model? In some ways, right now, it's been very sustainable because of the grocery stores. I don't see that changing anytime soon based on what I just explained to you. However, this is the kind of work that I'd love to see there be no need for. But yet here we are. There's a large amount of people that need this food and rely on this food. So it isn't sustainable the way it sits right now. We have introduced the coffee company that was mentioned in my bio. We're trying to look at different ways to increase our social enterprise presence in the community to help fund what we do. Having 5 trucks on the road full-time, as well as staff here at the center, is definitely a costly endeavor. Right now, the mustard seed is shouldering all of that cost. So we're looking at different ways to reach out in the community and make this a more sustainable long-term program. Although ideally, of course, we would love to see the need for this program not exist, but we're not quite there yet.
Mm-hmm. So kind of speaking to that, food insecurity can't really be kind of discussed on its own. So what do you see are some of the root causes of avoidable food waste and loss? I'll ask that question first.
Sorry, what do I see as the root causes?
Some of the root causes of avoidable food loss and waste.
Well, again, because we're dealing on a community level with the stores, I see the consumer-driven society that we live in as something that's creating this need for perfection all the time. So that's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how to answer that. I know that a lot of food waste is happening in the home, and so what we do and what we did pre-COVID was we encouraged a lot of large groups to volunteer here. We would encourage groups and schools to come and have a tour and see what we do. And I really believe that especially when you're speaking to young people, that they take that message back home to their parents and their families once they learn about food waste and how to avoid that in the home. I think that's probably where it starts. And it just goes out from there. Of course, right now we're not able to have those groups in the facility, but I always found those tours and those volunteer days really important in terms of getting our message out there, that there are so many ways to use this food. And if you have come for a tour, or if you do come for a tour, it's amazing. The quality of food that we have in this facility is, I mean, we call it rescued food, but it's really just amazing food. It's not what you think. And when you see it, it's absolutely amazing.
That's a great point, and I'm glad you brought that up. And I guess my next question would be, how do we, as a society, avoid the stigma of using donated food? Or how do we demystify that? What do you think is steps we can take to do that?
Well, yeah, that's a really great question. As a society, our facility here, the 35,000 people that we serve through the Foodshare Network here are what people call the hidden hungry. Mm-hmm. And so by estimation, I believe it was based on a 2014 survey, the 14% of folks that are food insecure in the Greater Victoria region, about 15,000 folks per year access what we would think were traditional services like food banks, soup kitchens, etc. And this facility aims to serve those other 35,000 that they call the hidden hungry. And those are folks that feel maybe that they're not in a situation where they could access food banks, or they don't feel that they should be accessing that type of food for whatever reason. And so through the nonprofits that we serve, we're hoping that that gets the food out into the community in different ways, whether it's learning to cook in the classroom, or school meal programming, or seniors communities coming together to cook food in their community kitchens. That's how we're addressing it on a community level with what we do here.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I think also speaking to how it's decentralized, so the food is going to where they are in their neighborhood. How do you feel that's a benefit for them to be accessing other social services that they might need?
Well, I think there's only positive to be had for that. If the food is at the community center and they're accessing other services and they're coming together with other members of their community, it really does destigmatize the food, so to speak. It's just learning and cooking and being together while they're accessing other really important services, daycare, counseling, etc. I think that it's a win-win, and it doesn't require members of the community to actually come to our facility and line up or anything like that for food. You know, they receive it where they are, and they're already in most of these buildings and institutions doing whether they're learning or whether they're being together. It's a great way to decentralize it. We have tried to change our market at the food bank level. I'm sure you've seen we have gone away from the traditional food bank model and into a market model for those folks to try and empower, give folks the power of choice and culturally appropriate choices for food, rather than just handing them a bag of food over the counter. But yeah, I think this programming really, really helps in terms of going out. We serve, you know, Galiano Island, Main Island, Salt Spring, all sorts of areas that we wouldn't be able to reach otherwise through this facility.
That's so fantastic. It's great to hear that. Have you seen a difference in how clients that access your services in terms of having that human dignity about choice around food? Or yeah, have you seen a shift at all?
We've definitely seen a shift with our market model over at Queen's. Going from the traditional food bank into the market model was incredible. We don't see the evidence of the shift as much here at the facility because we're serving the agencies, and then the agencies are distributing the food. So we're not, unfortunately, we don't see the impacts quite as directly here. We do hear about it, and lots of folks share moments with us. But of course, that dignity of choice is crucial, and I think there's more to be done in that area, that's for sure.
That's fantastic. So I guess a couple of my last questions would be, so as great as a reach as these programs have, they inherently rely on a wasteful industrial food system. And as we continue into this pandemic, and we might see shortages of food coming from the US, as we rely on, 75 to 80% of our fruit and veggies are imported from the US and Mexico. How do you see this as an opportunity to transition to integrating local fresh food into these existing distribution programs? And do you think that's possible? Are you seeing a shift there at all with the pandemic?
I think it's very possible. We have had a lot of local farms just come on board. It's a great time of year for us here in Victoria. We have a lot of fantastic participants. The Government House is doing a community garden, and they've been donating. We have several church community gardens that have been donating. So we are seeing a lot more local produce, which is fantastic. And we would always be happy to see more. There's a lot of room to improve in that area for sure.
That's great. Yeah, we're excited to see. So a lot of that food that they're growing is through the Get Growing Victoria seedling distribution program. So we as a city have been growing those seedlings, and then a number of our community partners are growing the food for the food bank. So it's great to see that hyper local food system and that high nutrition value going directly to the people who are of highest needs. So that's exciting to see. And then if people would like to support this program, to donate either, is Grow a Row, are those programs available in terms of food safety here? Can folks donate food, or would you prefer funding support at this time? How can people support the program right now?
So folks can support the program in a number of ways. Normally I would say volunteering is a great way to get involved, but unfortunately right now we're not able to do that. So you can get involved in a number of ways. You can see what we do at mustardseed.ca. Also, food donations are still welcome. We're accepting food donations from individuals at our Queens location, Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. They accept donations there. We're also accepting larger donations, restaurants and different organizations that want to donate on a bit of a larger level are able to donate here at our facility. And certainly folks can reach out to me directly if they have any questions or want to know how they can get involved. Financial funding is always really, really helpful. We have a lot of really great wholesale relationships with organizations like Thrifty Foods, and our relationship with them allows our dollar to go a lot farther. So if financial donations are always welcome, in that we can spend that money to the best of our ability with what we need at the time, whether it's protein or feminine hygiene products, etc., produce, whatever there's a shortage of, we're always able to fill that gap with our wholesale relationships.
Great. Thank you, Treska, for your time, for being here. We appreciate you and sharing your expertise. Perhaps if you want to write in the chat some of those resources you just listed in terms of the website and your contact information, if people have more questions, or maybe Janelle will provide that at the end. And just as a reminder to everyone, we'll have a Q&A period after our second presentation. So please hold your questions to that time. But thank you, Treska.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to Rhiannon Moore. Our second panelist today is a colleague of mine at the City of Victoria. Rhiannon is the Zero Waste Outreach Coordinator, who's currently helping to develop a Zero Waste Victoria action plan to help guide the city towards bold waste reduction. In 2018, Rhiannon was the recipient of the Garfield Weston Award for Northern Research for her work on plastic pollution in Canada's North, and later named one of Canada's top 30 under 30 sustainability leaders for corporate nights. Rhiannon also loves to garden, cook, and find ways to waste less at home. She will be presenting today on the the Love Food Hate Waste campaign, and updating us on how the city is incorporating food waste reduction goals into the city's zero waste food strategy. So hi, Rhiannon. Thanks for sharing today, and feel free to take it away.
Yeah, hi Alex, thanks for having me, and thanks Treska. I am new to the city and still learning about all the wonderful initiatives that are in our community, and it's just so fantastic hearing firsthand from somebody working kind of on the ground in waste reduction. And as we develop this zero waste strategy for the city, we're really looking for those local examples, and we're really encouraged by them. So as Alex said, I'm going to be chatting a little bit about the zero waste strategy that we're creating, that council has given us, city council has given us direction to write, and then also give you some resources. One of my favorite resources, and the city is a founding member of this program called Love Food Hate Waste. I'm actually just going to put the link for it in the chat. Also, thank you to the attendees, the 10 attendees that are here. Please reach out throughout what I'm talking about if you have any questions, or just say hi and where you're coming from, because it's really interesting to see what community people are living in, and why you're interested in this webinar. So I am actually going to share my screen, and then I'm going to get into my quick presentation. I don't want to bore everyone with tons of slides, but it'll give you an idea. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about reducing food waste at home, but also what we're working on at the city. So as Alex said, I'm a zero waste outreach coordinator. So a lot of what I do is based on the communications of our zero waste program, which we're calling Zero Waste Victoria. And it's super important because we see waste of all kinds piling up in our landfills, in our oceans, and along our streets. And it's really important for us to address waste of all kinds, and food waste is a very important aspect of this. So we're working on a municipal zero waste strategy because the community values leadership on this and sustainability. A lot of people that live in the city of Victoria do have quite strong environmental values, and especially now we've seen how important it is to be a very resilient community in times of stress and challenges. And we also have kind of broader regional goals as well and targets that we have to meet. And so it's important for us as a city to be able to take direct action and reduce waste in our community to actually meet these targets. And then as a local government, we also have very unique tools to address what we call the top of the pollution prevention hierarchy. So, we learn reduce, reuse, recycle, but what we talk about a lot at the city is that the larger hierarchy, which is which starts with preventing waste, and then reducing when you can, reusing, repairing, and refurbishing, recycling, all of those things. So we have a lot of unique tools to be able to address our challenges. And then we also need to look ahead and see how our municipal waste services need to be planned to address evolving environmental and social challenges and objectives. So right now we're in a global pandemic, and we're just kind of monitoring how this might be affecting waste, and we need to be able to adapt to things like this. So as I said, we're working on a zero waste strategy, and one of the focus areas is food and organics, because about 21% of items in the landfill are actually food and organic waste. And then our other focus areas are single-use items and packaging, durable goods, which are things like textiles and electronics, and then the built environment, which we also don't think about a lot as waste, but construction waste is also quite a big challenge. And so this is just kind of showing you, if you look at where the green streams are, so that basically means the organics and food. And as you can see, even though it is composted, that's still, a lot of that is probably preventable food waste. And some of it is being composted properly, but some of it is also ending up in the landfill. And as Alex said, when it breaks down in the landfill, it generates greenhouse gases. So it's not composting properly, and it's contributing to our climate challenges. So we want to prevent that. So addressing food waste also can help us address climate targets. And then food waste and organics, as I said, make up the largest part of all waste sent to the Heartland landfill, which is where the city's waste goes. And so that's 21.1%. So that's a fairly significant number when you think about it. When you think of all the waste that we make, it's quite a bit. And 63% of food Canadians throw away could at one point be eaten. So that is preventable food waste. And a lot of that occurs at home. About 40, I think over 40% occurs at home. And so the average Canadian household, that amounts to about 140 kilograms of food per year, which is, you're not only throwing out food, but you're kind of throwing out your money too, because you are purchasing all this food and kind of either forgetting about it in the house, or you don't know how to prepare it in the right way. And I can talk a bit about that. And so that costs the average household about $1,100 per year, which is pretty significant. And then when we look back in terms of all of Canada, that's almost 2.2 million tons, which is wasted every year, costing $17 billion. So this is definitely an issue, and an issue that we're trying to address at a local level. So some of the strategies that we're looking at are introducing programs to encourage food planning and prevent avoidable food waste in partnership with Love Food Hate Waste. So I will talk a bit about them, but it's also kind of supporting programs like the mustard seed and seeing how we can support them and how we can help build connections within the community and support that food rescue and redistribution. So I'm going to talk a bit about Love Food Hate Waste Canada, which is, honestly, before I started at the city, I didn't know about, and now I'm just completely obsessed with this resource because it's a fantastic website, and the city of Victoria is a founding member of it, and it's it's a great resource for both municipalities, small businesses, but also just people at home looking for great recipes and ways to reduce waste at home. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go to the actual website if I can. Oh, it's not working. Let's see if this works again. There we go. Can everyone see that?
Yes, that's working.
Okay, so this is what the website looks like. So as you can see, it's an initiative of the National Zero Waste Council. And each kind of season, there's kind of a new campaign or new focus areas, but the main aspect of reducing food at home is what we call plan it out, use it up, and keep it fresh. Those are your 3 things that are going to reduce food waste at home. So when you get to this website, one of my favorite resources, so you can just go straight to recipes. You can find out, you just have your 10 easy tips, how to portion things out, use things up. So how to dry fruits and vegetables, canning, baking tips, reviving wilted food, that's a big one. And then ways to keep it fresh. So how to place different items in your fridge based on what kind of food it is, because your fridge actually has some warmer areas and colder areas. So when you open up your fridge, actually the fridge doors are the warmest areas. So you can place things such as condiments and things that already have preservatives in them that don't go bad as easily in that area. And there's some really great freezer guides too. But my favorite aspect is if you go to Get Inspired and then share your tips, there is this really cool board that anyone can submit a, I'll just minimize this. Anyone can submit a tip to. So if you have a really cool food saving tip, you can just submit it on here. And it's from people all across Canada. And so it's just like if you have raw onion leftovers, if you have broccoli stalks, how to use those. So some people peel them, some people make them into kind of like a broccoli rice. And yeah, it's really interesting. It's very, like somebody just posted a quick and easy gnocchi. So no fussing. And so it's a really great resource for people to kind of not only reduce food waste, but kind of get inspired while they do it. And I think that that's maybe something that we struggle with about is it's like, okay, doing something good for the environment is something that might be inconvenient for me. Whereas this is not necessarily inconvenient. This is kind of becoming more inspired and looking at other people's resources and tips and seeing how you can make some really fantastic recipes, make your money last longer, which we all are trying to do right now, and reduce waste and the amount of things ending up in compost facilities and landfills. So yeah, I hope that people will use this resource and share it and maybe even consider submitting a tip because it's fantastic to read them and see how many people are really trying to get engaged with this topic and reduce food waste at home. So I will pass it back to Alex. I wanted to keep that kind of quick and short and see if anyone else had questions or comments about food waste or just zero waste in general, because food waste is such an important part of it.
Thanks, Rhiannon. That was a great presentation. We do have a question from Laura Lynn. She asks, where is it being composted from all municipalities? Has anyone really seen the process or photo documented?
Sorry, I'm just gonna read that. Oops, where can I see the questions?
So if you just click on your chat
Okay.
at the very bottom of the bar, it should pop up, and it should pop up on the right-hand side.
Okay.
Are you able to see it?
There's also a very similar question that someone typed into the Q&A.
Oh, I'm looking at the Q&A.
It's almost the same, the second question there.
Right, where does compost go from
Yeah.
curbside? So it really depends what municipality you're in. So the best thing to do to find out where it might go is to contact your city, the solid waste department. So they're the ones collecting it, and then making sure it goes to the right facility. So some areas will send food scraps and also yard waste all to the same facility, and it will go to a really large industrial compost facility, which can break things down at a high rate. But then there's smaller facilities too that aren't necessarily considered industrial. So they might have some restrictions as to what you can actually put in your compost bin. So I would definitely look into what locally you're able to do, because every single municipality has a little bit of something different. But yeah, it's important. You said, I think somebody said they're a food gardener. So yes, you do want local compost that is high quality, and that can sometimes be hard to find, because a lot of what happens is people end up kind of contaminating the compost, and food stickers are a big problem, and now we're starting to see some compostable plastics get into items like that. So I would just even though it is a bit of work, just try to investigate locally, contact your solid waste staff at the city and see where the compost might go. Some of it is local, some of it goes to, so for instance, in the city of Victoria, from my understanding, a lot goes to Richmond. So it really depends where you live. And then what was the next question?
I could also touch on that a little bit to answer that question. So the Parks Department does have leaf mulch and compost. So the leaf mulch pile is just right at the end of the park's yard. We just piloted a distribution of excess garden materials this year for neighborhood residential use. And so that was launched in April. We had 4 distribution sites at community partnerships where compost and leaf mulch was picked up from decentralized places. We did have that tested at MB Labs, and it was safe for food production. And I can provide an updated list of what is exactly in that compost, but it's been sitting there for 3 years cooking. So it's definitely safe to use, and we wanted to ensure that it was safe for food production. So that program will probably be happening again next year, and it'll be continuing annually. That's something that the city provides. And I can also provide a link to where on the parks website that information will be available. And I'm not sure if M is here as well, but recently, and maybe M can speak to this a little bit more, but the Compost Education Center piloted a program where they were having food scraps bin in particular centralized parks where people could drop off their food scraps, and they were turning that into compost. It was a pilot program that was supported through the Urban Food Table. So potentially we could also provide a link, but the Compost Education Center is a great resource in terms of how to make your own compost at home. You can go and visit them and see their hot compost in action. They have a number of different styles of composting that they're doing on site that you can ask questions around, and they have fact sheets which are super helpful. And trying to think if there's anything else in terms of that. Yeah, no, I think that's it for compost.
Yeah, that's a good point, is the Compost Education Center is an amazing resource and local resource that people can definitely get into for sure.
Great, awesome. And then there's another question for Rhiannon. The cities and townships have mostly embraced, oh, we just talked about that. Oh, I thought there was another one up there, but it's gone. D. Fizzard also said, thanks, Alex. I picked some up from City Mulch and Soil. It was lovely. You're in Esquimalt. Okay. Author through Victoria residents. Be very efficient and equitable to have all municipalities coordinated by a CRD to provide access. Yeah, that's true. There definitely can be more collaboration with regards to having particular materials available. And that's a discussion that we're going to be, an ongoing discussion that needs to be happening. So thanks for mentioning that.
Alex, there was one other question. It was directed to Treska, and she had answered it in the Q&A. So it might be one that you want to read out, just in case others were wondering the same thing.
That's where it went. Okay, great. Yeah. So the next question is, local gardeners have been asking where they can donate their excess crops. I'd like to forward contact information and locations where they can take produce. So Treska, do you want to answer that as well?
Yes, excuse me, I can answer that. Excess crops, so generally we like to keep the donations on the smaller side from gardeners, like private gardens and things like that can be donated to our location at 625 Queens Avenue, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. But larger gardens that have an excess of crops that want to drop things off to our warehouse, that's absolutely fine as well. And I just noted in the notes that we're open Monday to Friday and donations can happen. We prefer the donations to come in between 11 and 2, but we are here most of the day until 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, and that's at 808B Viewfield Road. We're a locked facility, however, due to COVID, so the donations can just be brought to one of our bay doors and one of our folks will help you out there.
Great. And then Treska, I was also wondering, we had asked the question where people can donate either excess produce that they've grown or make donations, but how does one access the food if they're in need? Do they look at, on a website of when they can come and pick it up, or what's the best course of action for folks who are looking for food?
So if folks are in need on an individual level, we direct them to our location at 625 Queens, where we have our market set up. They do have COVID protocols in place, but we are serving individuals and families through our market style services at 625 Queens. This facility only serves the agencies that are approved members of the Foodshare Network. So if you are a nonprofit agency and you want to join the Foodshare Network or learn more about what we do and whether or not what we do would be a good fit, we can set you up with our Foodshare Network coordinator, Sonia, to screen you and talk to you about the application process.
Great, thank you. And what sort of foods can people expect when they're going to shop at the Queens location? Is there a variety or
yes,
like
so we have all the dry goods available, of course, pastas, sauces, canned goods, things like that, the traditional foods that you think of when you think of a food bank. But because of our food rescue programming, we're able to provide a huge array of fresh fruits, vegetables, and produce, depending on what comes in from our partners, garden partners and stores. Dairy products are also available, baked goods, breads. We try to provide just about anything you would find in a regular grocery store for everyone there.
Amazing. And could you let us know, are those the hours as the same as the warehouse, or those separate hours?
So our Queens location for individuals to access, the market is open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Okay, great. There was a question that asked the name of the agency that can take small donations on Viewfield Road.
So we don't accept small donations at Viewfield Road because it's a warehouse. It's a large working warehouse. So if the donations are smaller from an individual's garden, you can take those directly to our location at Queens Avenue. That's 625 Queens Avenue. And our location here on Viewfield Road is for larger donations, community gardens, things like that, because it's such a large warehouse format.
Great, thank you. I'm just gonna write that in here.
Of course.
So are there any other questions that we have from the group, or any comments in and around information that was helpful, or other kind of food waste is such a large kind of nebulous topic that obviously we just wanted to really focus in on tips and tricks of what you can do at home. And so I guess I have a question for Rhiannon. What are the top 5, and to Treska as well, what are the top 5 accounts that you're following that have, in terms of zero waste or food reduction, that you recommend people to get tips and tricks on a daily schedule? Because I think change behavior involves like seeing it and looking at it often. So what would you recommend are your best kind of influencers, I guess, right now?
Oh my gosh. Well, I've kind of gotten off the influencer train, so I don't know if I can give you 5. I honestly go to my mom for tips and tricks, because growing up, I thought that my mom was completely nuts for trying to like save every little bit and like try to combine ketchup bottles together, and I found it so bizarre. And so I would say, before you hop on social media, ask your family and ask your friends if they have favorite recipes and tips and tricks, because maybe this is a thing, like going back to COVID, where you're starting to kind of rediscover that self-reliance and stuff. And so my friends and I actually started a recipe share through email, and just have like really cheap, easy recipes. So definitely reach out to friends and family if you can. Obviously, another favorite of mine is Love Food, Hate Waste, for obvious reasons. But I also really like Jamie Oliver as a chef, but also as someone who really advocates for really good local food and no fuss. Like there's none of this like fussiness about it. It's just like about local flavor. It's just make it simple, make it however you can, and don't fuss about it. So I'm a big person in and again, I grew up watching Jamie Oliver. So maybe I go back to my roots when it comes to resources, and I'm interested to hear what other accounts people follow, because I'm more, again, coming from the plastic pollution world and diving into this food waste world, and I'm really loving all these new resources that I'm finding. So I'm interested to hear maybe what accounts or people in the community that Treska looks to.
Treska, are there any that you look to that you would recommend?
Yeah, I don't really have many. I'm not big on following influencers either. I'm going to steal Rhiannon's answer as well. I'm all about the local network and talking and sharing. Definitely at the warehouse here with our staff, we're always talking about we get a lot of really interesting vegetables and fruits in. Some of them we don't recognize. So that always facilitates a really excellent question of what is this and how do you use it in a recipe? So unfortunately, I don't have some beautiful accounts for you to follow. I agree that speaking to those in your life, your family and friends, is often you get incredible tips and great recipes that way. True. Sorry, I'm not a big social media
No, that's okay.
fan.
I misspoke. I meant to say who influences your kind of your decisions in and around. I guess I was just thinking like the zero waste chef is a great. I mean, I think there's a connotation that it's like, oh, an influencer, there's like this disingenuousness to it, but they talk about, you know, how to shop at a farmer's market, how to preserve food, how it is, I find it very authentic, but I understand and I appreciate speaking to our grandparents or speaking to our parents, because it was something that was just so ingrained in societal behavior at that point, and I think we really need to go back to that. In terms of, we were talking a little bit about, I guess my last question will be, how do we avoid the stigma of donated food and shifting the narrative from food waste, like even the language that we use around food waste, to excess food? I think is, and as Rhiannon is using, avoidable food waste instead of, or avoidable food waste. So what are some change behaviors that you both recommend in terms of making this a daily practice?
My first recommendation would be, just based on what I'm learning from folks that have come here over the years, is to start in the home, to start with kids. They are huge advocates for what they're learning, whether it be in school programs or at their other friends' houses. That's the best influence I've seen is kids going home and rattling their parents' chains and making things change at that level. Food waste is, like you said, a huge topic, and it's a huge reach of things we could talk about with it. I guess what I'm hearing from a lot of people that I interact with here on a daily basis is that they think that when people see a best before date on a product, as particularly not produce, they think that it's gone off at that date. And truly, best before is essentially a sales pitch for a lot of products, because the food is actually okay for a lot longer beyond that. I know that some countries in the world are looking at actually changing that language and changing the way they regulate that, because the food is actually perfectly okay for consumption. In some cases, in canned goods, it's okay for years beyond that date. So that needs to change at of course, a federal level. And how do we go about that? I'm not sure, but maybe just changing the language and changing the attitudes towards things like that, and educating people that this food is actually perfectly good for consumption. How do we do that? Well, that's a huge question.
It's true. Yeah. I read in that report that only 5 food that expire should not be eaten after the best before date are meal replacements such as Boost, baby formula, protein bars, and a couple of prescriptions. But otherwise,
That's right.
those dates identify the key freshness of a product, not the safety, or the dates and those dates are often very conservative.
Exactly. And you'll hear often,
So,
oh, my kids won't drink milk.
That.
Yeah. Those dates shape people's attitudes towards food, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, instead of developing the skill to like smell and test and see, well, is it bad or not? And yeah, what can I do with sour milk in my baking and those sorts of things. So
our rule here with the, oh, sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, go ahead, Treska.
I was just going to say, one of our rules here when we're looking at food and deciding how to distribute the food and what goes out and what does not is, would you eat this yourself or would you feed it to your family? Yeah. That's a great rule of thumb. And actually testing the food, like you just spoke of, Alex. I mean, that's really important.
Yeah, I think moving away from cosmetic standards and going to taste and not being afraid to do that is a really important shift as well. So Rhiannon, do you have any last minute change behavior tips? And then I'll give it back to Janelle.
Yeah, I would say try to make it fun. So for me, things that really work are making something a challenge. So when I started to look at how to reduce my own waste footprint, I made it a challenge for myself for a full month. I was going to try not to buy anything made of plastic, for instance. So I would make it a challenge for yourself and for your family. Say, okay, we're going to try to just keep our food scraps to this jar or this can for the whole month. Or another thing is you could see what you could create out of those food scraps. So if you have, okay, we have broccoli stems left over or potato peels from this dinner, can we make maybe a potato peel and broccoli soup out of it? And you know, whoever comes up with the best recipe wins something. That's something that we did in our family a lot, is have kind of these, my brother and I would like battle against each other, and our parents would give us like one bizarre ingredient or simple ingredient that anyone can get, and how simple but tasty could we make it. So I would say try to make it fun. We're living in a time where, you know, it's a disheartening time and it's a challenging time for a lot of people. And there's many environmental challenges out there. And so if you're able to put a positive spin on something, I think that that's something that's really wonderful and beautiful. So yeah, that would be my tip.
Thank you so much for being here, Rhiannon and Treska. And I guess my last piece before I hand it back to Janelle is, I think as consumers, our dollars count where we spend them. And so if you can afford to buy local, please do, especially at this time. There's a lot of CSA programs that still have space supporting local farmers markets. So thanks for doing your part. And thanks to both of you for being here, and Janelle for having me.
Thank you all very much. It was wonderful hearing from you about the programs that you're working with, your tips. And I feel like we're just scratching the surface here on food waste. Like you said, it's a really broad topic, and I'd like for us to be able to explore it more. So just to give you a little teaser, through the Good Food Network and CRFAIR, every year we do have a Good Food Summit. So that's later in the fall, and we will be going online this year, I think, for that, or doing a mix if we can. And I think food waste would be one topic that we could explore in many different ways, many different angles to it. So I hope that we'll have the opportunity to do that. So if you have any ideas, please do let me know, and we'll be sure to follow up on that in the fall. So again, thank you so much to Treska, Rhiannon, and Alex. It was wonderful to hear from you all today, and thank you to our attendees.